we had talked about doing closing statements, but this is going so well and we're running out of time. I know you have to go, Tim.
Yeah.
Governor, in one of your earlier responses to questions, you talked about the challenges of dealing...
Can I just interrupt because I do have to go?
Yeah.
Thank you for
Fine.
that. And
Tim Cahill, thank you for joining us.
Tim
Cahill, the treasurer, has to run to an appointment in Lynn. We'll continue with the governor, Deval Patrick, and Charlie Baker. Thanks, Tim.
Todd, you can speak for me.
Okay, I will.
Take it easy.
Governor, in some of your earlier responses, given the budgetary challenges, the structural deficit, you talked about having cut the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And in an earlier conversation we had on my show months and months ago, you acknowledged that a bad practice is paying for employees out of capital accounts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the most recent prospectus that your Secretary of A&F and the Treasurer
We're
signed.
paying people out of the capital accounts.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's more than that. Back in June of 2007, you were fresh as a governor, about 15,700 employees on those accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Today, 20,000, almost 900, a growth of 5,000 jobs off capital accounts. You acknowledged in the earlier conversation a horrible fiscal practice to engage in should be cut down,
That's right.
not increased.
That's
and
right.
yet the numbers just released on June 8th say this is astounding, and it's. I'm just wondering if there's an explanation.
Yeah. First of all, the reason we have added on the capital accounts is because the capital program is at an all-time high. We have more road, rail, and bridge projects, broadband expansion, public and affordable housing. We're investing in public college and university campuses. We're building up this broken infrastructure, which is creating jobs right now, but also economic value and quality of life out for a long, long time. And that's a part of our recovery strategy we started before there was a stimulus bill and will be able to sustain after the stimulus bill. I completely agree with you that as a long-term matter, having we talked about this before.
Yes, we did.
Having employees on the capital account is not desirable. Moving those employees to the operating account is a very costly thing right now, but it is something I think that we need to move to over time.
Charlie Baker?
Look, my view on this is pretty simple, which is I've been talking for about a year about the fact that we have not, as a state, gotten our arms around the budget. Turnaround start when you plan for the worst, budget accordingly, and get the budget behind you.
Well, that's not what you did with the Big
Governor.
Dig. I'm sorry. That's just not what you did with the Big Dig.
Look, I worked on the Big Dig. I never actually worked on the Big Dig at all. The Big Dig lasted 24 years. It started in the early 1980s when I was barely out of college. And I spent 4 years as A&F secretary at a point in time when the big issue was what to do about federal funding. And we came up with a plan to deal with that. And the plan, frankly, Governor, is exactly the same plan from a structural point of view that you're using with the Accelerated Road and Bridge Program.
Actually,
and I don't think that's a bad plan. But to get back to my point, we have still a $2 billion structural deficit. We may have an $800 million or $700 million problem in the budget that's going to start in 2 weeks here in Massachusetts. And the big issue we're going to face as a state going forward is how are we going to get out of this fiscal jam that we've been in now for 3 years? And I've made very clear that I have a plan to do this, and I'm going to continue to build on that plan. You asked for $1 billion in savings and cuts. I've proposed $1 billion. Now, Mass Taxpayer says it's $600 million. $600 million ain't chump change. The bottom line here is whomever the next governor is going to have to be serious about going after reforms, cutting state spending, and getting out of this business of just pushing the problem off onto the taxpayers and onto the cities and towns, which is what we've been doing for the past couple of years.
Well,
and we will not sustain our reform success in education if we keep doing that. Because, Brockton, great school system, great high school, great success, is talking about laying off 300 or 400 teachers because of local aid cuts and the fact that they don't have any flexibility with regard to what to do with their health insurance plans, Governor, which is something I wish you would support.
And if there is an immediate rollback on day one, as you have proposed, of the sales and income and corporate tax, then Brockton will be worse.
My message,
and let's be clear. Let's be clear about that. So when we talk about stewarding state finances, first of all, you don't have to take my word for it. Take the word of the independent rating agencies who have said we have done a very strong job and a better job than most of the rest of the country in the midst of the worst economy in living memory. Yes, there are many more difficult decisions ahead. We are going to have to think about, I think, in fresh ways, something that I have wanted us to be thinking about as a body politic for a long time, which is what is it we want government to do and not do, And then what does that actually cost? And
I
what
have
are
a,
some
I,
smarter
I have
ways,
a plan, and I've
what are some
proposed
smarter
a plan,
ways
Governor,
of
and we need more.
Well, we've been
we need
executing
more,
a plan, and that's the difference.
Yeah, but the plan,
we've been actually
the plan
getting
you've
it
been
done.
executing is just kicking the can. We're still basically talking about a huge deficit as far into the future as we can
Charlie,
see.
I have a lot of respect for you, but the notion that you, with your fingerprints all over the big dig financing plan, would
which
talk
uses
to me
exactly the
about
same,
kicking
which
the.
uses exactly the same model that you're using.
The difference is we were totally upfront about it, and we
Governor,
talk
if
about
you do
what
have
things
a 2 to
actually
3
cost.
Excuse me, we've got to wrap up because we're running out of time. I just have one quick question for you because you've been campaigning around the state discussing the burden of trying to get your message out with the noise that hate radio creates. And
Yeah.
I was just curious, were you talking about us?
Oh, you're so sensitive, Todd.
I am.
He's got thin skin,
No, but you know
doesn't
what?
he?
But you know what? You know what's out there. This notion that we have to agree on everything before we can work together on anything is part of what is so polarizing down in Washington, and I think it's been creeping into our politics and our public discourse for a long time. And I think we need to get past that because, as Charlie and Tim and I have all acknowledged, and as your questions have gotten to, we got some big issues in front of us. They're not all fiscal; they are also values based.
So you were talking about music radio then?
Something like
Wasn't
That's
talking
what I
about
thought.
you.
Something like that. You guys have been great, as has Tim Cahill, who had
Thank
to
you
leave
for
earlier.
having us.
We would like to continue to do this. You know, we've only scratched the surface, and I'm not throwing bouquets, but you've all handled yourself well. We've only begun to scratch the surface. If there's a $2 to $3 billion structural deficit, each of you got some serious thinking and some serious explaining to do to the rest of us. And with that,
Is that an invitation
Is
for them
that,
to come back?
That was it.
where's the
okay,
music that comes
exactly.
with that one? Bum bum bum
well,
bum.
what are you doing next Tuesday? We'll get in touch
We'll
with your
talk.
campaign.
Okay,
We'll talk.
All right.
Absolutely.
Deval,
Charlie
Thank
Baker.
you both for having us.
Charlie
Yeah,
Baker,
thank you
thank
very much. I appreciate
Tim
it.
Cahill,
Good to
thank
be
you for
with you.
being here.